Okay, so this is not good. The aerial is now installed with a hole in the caravan and I'm not getting any signal at all. Something's not right. Bollocks. Hi, it's Dave T, and this has arrived today. I've actually been planning this for some time, been on the fence a bit for a while as to whether to get it or not. And basically this is the Avtex 4G Wi-Fi router, so it picks up a 4G signal with an antenna on the roof, has a router connected up to that which can then produce a Wi-Fi signal from the van itself to connect your phone, laptop, tablet, anything like that, up to TV, stuff like that. So I've decided to get it. It's just arrived, so bit of an unboxing. Haven't done an unboxing in a while. And open it up, and okay, that's interesting. I'll talk more about this later as well, but it comes with a SIM card that they offer a service with, but it's actually literally in the top of the box, so it could have quite easily just fallen outside of the box. It was in another box that it shipped in, so it shouldn't have gone too far, but that's not great. They shouldn't really pack it like that. But anyway, manuals, we'll go through those later. And then inside what we've got, looks like packing. Yeah, so that's the space of packing. And then we have, move this to one side, box here. Okay, so in here we have the router itself. I'm actually quite happy with that because that's much smaller than it looked. It looks like it's a big chunky unit when you look at it on their website, but actually that's quite small. Have a Cat5 network cable. Most people, my guess is, are probably not going to use this. This is for connecting devices directly to the router. So rather than go by Wi-Fi, if you've got a laptop, you could plug it directly in. I doubt many people are going to do it, and if they were, probably a bit on the short side, but at least they provided it, I guess. And a power cable. That could easily get lost as well, but that's a repeat of the sticker at the side with the serial number and the Wi-Fi password and stuff on there. And finally in this box, a bracket to bolt this guy to the wall, and the Wi-Fi antennas, not to be confused with the antenna on the roof. These go into the actual router itself to give you a Wi-Fi signal, so they're transmitting and receiving Wi-Fi signals. Like another packing box. Yep, packing box. And then this must be the antenna. Okay. So the antenna, this goes onto the roof of the van. You need to put a hole in the roof, and then two sizes of these threaded ferrules to go through the actual roof of the van, which basically bolts this on to the top of the van, and you've got a manual for that. That's the constituent parts, and now have a closer look at each of those before we get around to reading the instructions, I guess, and then installing it. Okay, so before we actually install the Avtex unit into the caravan, we need to check it's working, because when we install it in the caravan, we're going to have to start drilling holes in the roof, and we don't want to drill a hole in the roof, stick it on. It is stuck on as well. There's a bolt that mainly holds it, but there's a sticky pad on there, so it's going to be difficult to get back out. We don't want to go through all of that and then find it's not actually working. So we need to test it first. Now, in the manual, in the documentation, it does actually state to do a VSWR test, which is a voltage standing wave ratio test. It's a test of basically how much power it's safe to put through an antenna. Now, I did wonder when I saw this, I'm not an expert on this, but I was kind of aware of this stuff because my uncle was a radio officer in the Maritime Navy and my grandfather was a very keen amateur radio enthusiast, so I kind of grew up in that world. So I'm not an expert on it at all, but I was aware of it, and I'm also aware it does require relatively specialist equipment, so I'm not entirely sure your average caravan dealer is going to have that equipment. So I did reach out to Avtex, and they did clarify that actually the recommendation is that you do a bench test on it before you start drilling holes in the bodywork. So that's what we're going to do now. So now I have a SIM card in the actual router, so running on EE, and I've done a speed test over there. I'm running off this bench power supply, so running at 12.8 volts, and it's drawing, according to the power supply, it's drawing 0.14, 0.15, call it 0.15 amps, which is at that voltage 1.9 watts. We've got the antenna sitting here, cabled up to the router. This is all metal here, so it's not a great place to put an antenna for a mobile signal, but currently we're getting about 14 meg, I think it was. So I'm heading over to the van now to do the actual installation. So on the way, it's probably worth talking about mobile contracts for the Avtex. Now, the Avtex uses a mobile signal to connect to the internet, just like a mobile phone, which means, of course, you need a SIM card and, importantly, a mobile contract with a provider. The Avtex actually has 2 SIM card slots. You don't have to use both of them, but you can use both, so that if you want 2 different providers, you can get 2 contracts, 2 SIM cards, and then the Avtex will automatically swap between them, or you can choose to swap between them, depending on which one you want to use at any one time to give you more coverage. Now, the AMR 994 is actually fully unlocked, so it will work with any SIM from any provider, but Avtex do provide in the box a SIM card from a company called Govivo. Now, Govivo is what's termed as a virtual mobile service provider, which basically means they don't actually have any infrastructure of their own, and instead what they do effectively is to resell the provision from another provider, and in the case of Govivo, that's O2. So if you go with the Govivo service, then effectively you will have coverage from O2 when you're in the UK. Now, of course, with caravans and motorhomes, the whole point of a mobile solution is that you don't know where you're going to be. It could be absolutely anywhere. There's no point really in choosing a mobile provider based on what the coverage is in a particular area. Instead, what I would suggest is you choose a provider based on redundancy. And what I mean by that is that you should choose an alternative provider to the one that you use for your normal mobile phones. The reason being that way, if for example you're with O2, then instead of using Govivo or O2 on the Avtex, if for example you went for EE, then that means that if you go somewhere where there's no coverage by O2, then you'll still have access on the Avtex via the EE contract. And conversely, if you go somewhere where there's no EE coverage, the Avtex won't have a service, but of course your mobile phones will then still work. Going back to the Govivo contract, the contract does actually provide unlimited UK data and up to 25 gigabytes of European data. Currently, that's at a price of $18.99 per month. It's a rolling 1-month contract, which basically means you only have a commitment for 1 month. If you want to cancel that, you do need to give 30 days notice. Now, I've noticed that some people on the internet, when talking about the Avtex and Govivo, have suggested there's like a parking option. Now, I can't find any real mention of that in the literature or the website. Now, I've reached out to Govivo to see if they can give some clarity on that. They haven't got back to me yet. So just to confirm, Govivo did actually get back to me, and whilst they used to offer an option of kind of parking the SIM for a lower cost of a couple of quid per month, they no longer do that. Instead, it's a flat fee per month, and what you can do is you can cancel that at any point, and then later on you can reactivate the card. So that's the current offering, and now back to the main video. Now, from my personal perspective, my wife and I use EE and O2 respectively. So what I'm going to do initially is I have purchased a £15 pay-as-you-go SIM card from EE, which gives me 25 gigs of data. I've gone for EE rather than O2 because we've generally found that EE has better rural coverage, and that's backed up by a lot of the statistics on that. And also it means by having the same provider as my wife, for this test, it means I can compare the service she gets with her phone inside the van versus the Avtex unit with the aerial on the roof. So some of that choice goes back on what I said in terms of getting an alternative provider, but it does mean that I can do some additional testing. So in terms of whether the Govivo is a good choice for you, that all really depends on how much you go away, your current providers of course, and on how much data that you use. Based on those things, Govivo could actually be a really good choice for yourselves. And added to that, of course, the SIM is actually in the box, so there's the convenience factor. So with that said, we're heading up towards the storage yard now. So the next thing to do is to get to the van, get up on the roof and start doing this installation. Okay, so here at the caravan obviously, and it's time to prep the roof. So I need to wash the roof thoroughly just around this section, do the rest of the van later, and then drill the holes. So let's crack on cleaning this up. Okay, so that's the general area clear. I've got about like a 3 foot by 2 foot area. I'm doing it on the front driver's side of the van. There's a cupboard underneath. You really need a cupboard underneath, otherwise you're going to see the connector as it goes through the van into the van. So the next thing is to check the measurements, work out we're going to drill this hole, double check it, triple check it, quadruple check it, and then drill a hole. That'll probably be in the wrong place. Okay, so I'm putting it into this cupboard here, but not at the front corner. I want to put it in instead into the rear corner. And the only reason is, I'll back off for a second, where the roof curves down, I want the fitting to be reasonably close to the edge of the cupboard, but I don't want the top part to overlap anything which is sloping on it on a flat surface. So it will be, it's going to work, it's going to be in this side here rather than that side. Well, here goes nothing. And I want to try and keep it as square as possible. Okay, so this caravan is a Bailey Alutech body shell, so it's relatively thick. Difficult to tell, probably about 30mm or so, something like that. So we need this adapter, and it's also, from cutting it, I somehow thought the roof was aluminium. I think the walls are, the roof is actually entirely composite, plastic basically. So there's a sheet of plastic or whatever it is on the outside, foam, and then some kind of composite layer on the inside. So go very slowly drilling it with a hole saw. Don't use a flat bladed drill, that will create one hell of a mess. Okay, so that's on there. So now I'll test fit this up on the roof and do do a test run of the actual antenna once it's on the roof. The orientation doesn't actually matter apparently, according to manual, so I think that way makes more sense. So before I do anything else, this is going to be clamped down with the bolt, but also there's a sticky pad on here. But before I do anything else, I'm going to clean this again. And this is mainly to make sure that the sticky pad sticks well. Squeaky clean. Leave that just there for a test bit. And we'll check everything's running on the router. Okay, so I'm just going to hook up the antennas. They're labelled cell B, which is for the auxiliary antenna. They're the same size as the Wi-Fi ones. Don't plug it into the Wi-Fi points. They're down here. And this should be cell A, which is the main. Okay. So, grab the other Wi-Fi antenna. Shouldn't need it for this test, but okay. I'm having these at a funny angle, I'll explain why later. And then some power. Router light on. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to boot up, so I'll boot that up and see if we've got an actual Wi-Fi signal. Okay, so I'll hook it up on my phone over Wi-Fi. Password for the Avtex, and this is why I haven't got my glasses on. Okay, so it's checking the quality of my internet connection. Okay, so that is connected, but no cellular access. Okay, so this is not good. The aerial is now installed with a hole in the caravan and I'm not getting any signal at all. Something's not right. Bollocks. Okay, so after running around in a flap like a complete numpty because I couldn't get any kind of mobile signal, just realised that I'd left it in the Wi-Fi connection mode. So one of the features of this, I'll probably do a section on it later because there's some other things to cover. One of the features of this router is you can actually link up to a local Wi-Fi. So the reason you would do this is, let's say you're on a site, either you've got no coverage at all from the mobile provider, but the site does have Wi-Fi, or if you just want to save money on mobile contract and use their site Wi-Fi, then what you can actually do is you effectively use the router as a switch or a bridge, where the router can connect to the site Wi-Fi, and then when you connect up to the router, rather than going through the antenna in the roof and the mobile signal, instead it talks to the site Wi-Fi. Now obviously you could just do that with your phone, but so for example, if then you've got maybe a site Wi-Fi where there's better Wi-Fi than mobile signal, but it's still, you're at the opposite end of the field or something, it's not great, you may get a better signal using this. Or if you just want to, if you've got lots of devices like TVs and tablets and all sorts of stuff that are already linked up to the Avtex router in terms of passwords and stuff like that, then you could link up to the site Wi-Fi on the router, and then everything else will just work through the router. So there's a couple of reasons. So now it is actually working. It's one hell of a relief after drilling a hole in the roof. So I'm now getting, I'll screen capturing this, about 23-ish. It hasn't finished the test yet. Okay, 23.9 download, and the upload is coming around about 25 or so, but it looks at 24, 25. 24.7, so 23.9 down, 24.7 up on a mobile signal running through the router. So now I just need to fix the actual antenna on the roof, because at the moment it's just sitting on there. It's going through a hole, so it's not going to fall off, but so I'm going to finally do the final fix on the antenna on the roof, and then mount this to the wall, and I've realised I've forgotten to bring some white screws with me, but I should be okay with the ones I've got. And crack on with that. Panic over. Just doing a test using my phone still, but now it's on an O2 network. So this demonstrates the reason. Part of the reason you're getting this is because it's got an aerial on the roof, which is obviously not inside a metal, not inside a box, but also I'm on O2. The one on the roof, or the Avtex, is on EE, and where we are now it's completely different. So what was I just getting just now? About 29 or something meg download. I've got 3.4 using just the phone's internet, partly because it's inside the caravan, but also because it's on a different provider. Okay, so I'm just going to give it another quick wipe round. Double certain. That's about as clean as it's ever going to get. As clean as it's ever been. And now there's a rubber boot, a seal around the outside, which stands proud of the actual base. So that's going to get squished down. So I'm just going to line it up. Evidently you have to give it a bit of force. Yeah, so now that's not going anywhere, more or less straight. I will put a bit of probably clear sealant around. They say it's optional. You shouldn't see it. So basically any water's got to get past this seal that's pushed down against here, then get past that whole section of sticky on 3M tape to get to the hole, and even if it does get through, then it's basically plastic and polystyrene, and any water that goes in would then just track straight down into the cupboard, which is not great, but you're not going to get huge amounts coming through there. So there's not a huge worry about water getting in to the bodywork as such, or causing much problem, because it's all composite stuff anyway now. There's no wood, nothing can really rot there. So now go and do the internal fittings. Apologies in advance for the audio. So according to the manual, these washers, they're split, not a normal sense of a split washer. You can see that there. Get a spanner on that just to tighten it up, and that's done. Okay, so the Avtex unit is all wired up, connected up. In terms of the aerials, these are Wi-Fi aerials here, and these Wi-Fi's aerials, the antenna direction is based not on a general thing of always having a certain direction. It's related to the signal antenna on the device that it's communicating with. That would typically be your laptop or your tablet, phone, stuff like that. So depending on how you're holding the phone makes a difference. Now if you're in a house where you've got an upstairs and a downstairs, then you would point them in different directions based on the fact of making the signal better for upstairs versus downstairs and so on. So with two aerials you point them in different directions. I'm doing it here so that it gets a better signal regardless of how you're holding the device. Either way, it's easy to just literally move them. So if you're trying to pick up the site Wi-Fi using the pass-through, which is what threw me earlier, then you could also just orientate them until you get a better signal. But that's the reason, and also it's just awkward to try and position them any other way. Okay, so it's been a couple of weeks now since I actually installed the Avtex system to the caravan. I wanted to wait until we went away and actually tried it in real life, and we're here now at Swallowbeck CL, just on the outskirts of Chichester, which is an off-grid site. We've been here for about 3 nights now, so we've been using it all 3 days, nights, and it's worked well. So time for conclusions. In terms of how it works for us, so we've connected up our mobile phones to it, and also we bought an Amazon Fire Stick for our TV, and we've been streaming TV and films via the Amazon Fire Stick. Also does BBC and all that sort of stuff, and that's worked great. Couple of notes on those in terms of data usage. Now, we managed to burn through about 9 gig of data in the first couple of nights, and that was watching a couple of movies or TV shows, about 2 hours per night roughly speaking, for those first 2 nights, and also using our phones. One of the reasons I think that was so high is that on mobile phones, they tend to restrict how much they download from the internet when they're on a mobile connection to the internet, and when they hook up to the Wi-Fi, they think, yay, we've now got free internet access, so we'll download all of our application and operating system updates and chew through loads of data. What you can do is on an Android device, and it'll be the same. If I can find some details, I'll put it up for Apple, but it should be the same on an Apple device. Go into the Wi-Fi settings on each phone where you've connected it up to the Avtex unit or any other mobile hotspot you're using. You can select that and then tell it is a metered Wi-Fi service. The phone then knows that it's basically going to cost you money to use, and therefore it restricts how much data it downloads from that connection, and that will vastly change how much data you're going to use on your Avtex contract, whichever SIM contract you're using. That will massively reduce it. Second thing, in terms of the Amazon Fire Stick, we had it on the absolute best setting because that's the default, which was a great picture. But that would have chewed through lots more data. I subsequently changed it down to the lowest setting, which they term as good. The lowest setting, it was fine to watch. There's no real issues on the lower setting. But when we watched a 1.5 to 2 hour film last night on that, it was about 0.5 gig of data that downloaded. So I'm expecting over the next couple of nights, the actual data usage with mobile phones and everything else is going to be much less significant. We're running it on an EE service. I got a £15 card, £15 of money, which was 25 gigs of data. It's certainly going to last us for this holiday, no trouble at all. And with that being a bit more conservative with the settings, should last us even longer. It runs out after 30 days anyway, to be fair. My wife is also on EE. I'm on O2. My O2 service is okay, but not great. The Avtex is much better, so it's certainly worth me hooking up to the Avtex unit for when I'm doing anything on my phone. I can get a better service and connection on that. My wife, interestingly, she gets a better download speed versus the Avtex, but a worse upload speed versus the Avtex. I'll put the figures on the screen to show you what the differences were. They weren't huge, but they were significant enough. I'm interested in anyone knows in the comments below as to why that is, but the download speed, as I say, seems to always be quicker on her phone than the Avtex unit, but the upload, the Avtex, is always better. I suspect it's the transmitter, the antenna is much better at transmitting, and to transmit data, it takes more effort, is the wrong word, it takes a better system to be able to transmit to a distant place, relative to try and pick up a signal. It's relatively easy with a radio to pick up a signal from anywhere in the world if it's been transmitted well, but if you're trying to transmit it to anything anywhere else in the world, that's when you really need better equipment. So that could explain to a certain extent why the upload seems consistently better on the Avtex unit, so that's a plus point of the Avtex unit. Other than that, in terms of general use, it's easy enough to use. I don't think we would want to try doing streaming on the TV if we were having to hook it up to our mobile phones all the time. It's too inconvenient in terms of slamming the battery on your mobile phone, data usage on your mobile phone if that's a particular concern to you, and just general convenience of having it all set up and ready to go. With the Avtex unit, we can just now turn the TV on, make sure the Avtex unit's turned on, and it's fine. So moving forward, I am planning on doing a couple more videos around other things that I can now do in the van now that there is a Wi-Fi system built into the van. So the two straight off the bat on that are potentially putting in some kind of Wi-Fi based security, so that if someone breaks into the van or the door opens, whatever else, then it can actually automatically notify me wherever I am theoretically in the world that the van's been kind of broken into, whatever. So notification like that for security, and also along similar lines for video. So potentially when we're staying at a site like this, it's not particularly remote here, but we've stayed at a lot more remote sites, but it's nice to have a bit of comfort where you can go onto your phone and kind of go, yes, we can still see a picture of everything in the awning, and it's safe if you've got like bikes and other equipment and stuff here that you want to keep an eye on. So those are two videos I'm going to be planning on doing over the next few weeks and months, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been a bit of a long one, but hopefully informative. If you have found it interesting or of use, then please do hit that like button, and if you're interested in seeing other videos I make, then please do consider subscribing to my channel. But most of all, thanks for watching.